In the 1950s, Rossendale was a busy mill town at the heart of the well-known Rossendale Valley. Over the years, many changes have taken place as the once great cotton and shoe manufacturing industries went into decline. It is now part of the Manchester commuter belt and is an ideal place for tourists to come and enjoy the breathtaking scenery and other local attractions. Woodcroft is about a mile out of Rossendale on the main road to Burnley. It includes Rosedale, Woodcroft, Thorne and East Street and Burnley Road. Looking back, it can be remembered as a special place with many childhood memories.
I think my earliest memory is coming up here to the farm. One of the earliest memories coming up to the farm was with my dad at night because there were no street lights, and we used to come up the farm path, and it must have come there where we think we found it, into the yard, which was cobbled, to the farm door. And I always found Mrs. Pickles a little bit scary when I was little. I just found her scary. But I used to hold his hand because it was so dark on dark nights. You couldn't really see anything except the torch on the gravel. And we'd get up here and get the milk and then go home. And I think I remember the lights in the bottom. I can't really remember anything else. That's one of my earliest memories. I also think, now I don't know whether you can remember, did they have some kind of almost like a boiler that they boiled pig swill in? Do you ever remember that?
No, I remember the small dairy at the back.
Yeah. And
I remember helping with milking and them bottling afterwards. So they had the milk used to, they got cold water going through a kind of zigzag.
Cooler.
And then the milk would go in the top and it'd go down and cool and it'd go through a filter and then it would be bottled straight into little bottles and they'd have aluminium caps you put on and this little hand stamping machine. You go stamp like that and that would seal it. And I remember one of my great joys was taking home half a pint of milk at the end of the end of milking.
This was a time before Xboxes, PlayStations, mobile phones and computers.
In those days, of course, everything revolved around the radio. Sundays was a Sunday lunch round the table when we all sat down together and listened to two family favourites with Gene Metcalfe and Cliff Mitchellmore. And the BFPO, whatever it may be, never ceased to amaze me really, that people could be linked up all over the world. Not like the constraints of these four little streets that was our safe haven. In the school holidays and the weather was good, at the top of the street we had farmland at our disposal, and there used to be a stream running through that land with 5 trees. We used to dam up the stream and catch sticklebacks, put them in a jam jar and then take them to the gang cuts as they were at the top of the street just across the road. I remember Mr. Garrigan, I think it was, he had all sorts of equipment in that hemp pen of his, including a long case clock, which, you know, why he would have a long case clock and a rocking chair in there, again, never ceased to amaze us really, but I suppose it was his little playing out den like we used to play out as well. But the big treat for us was bonfire, and everybody in the streets, East Street, Thorn Street, Woodcroft Street, in some way participated in these communal bonfires. They were tremendously good fun, and in the weeks leading up to it we would collect the wood for safe, put them in the top of the field, but then, not that you will be allowed to do it today, we used to actually hollow out the middle of the bonfire, put an old chair in there that had been donated, and then sit in there to guard it, which of course in these days would never be allowed to happen because of the health and safety fairies that seem to stop the fun at every opportunity that they can.
There was the excitement of a visit from a TV star.
One of the fondest memories I have as a child was the day that Lenny the Lion came to the Slipper Works. We'd all come home for lunch, as most of us did in those days, from St Paul's School. And I remember my brother James running in and saying, "Quick, quick, get your puppet of Lenny the Lion, he's come to the Slipper Works." So several of the children gathered together and came down here, and were lucky enough to have our photograph taken with Terry Hall and the one and only Lenny the Lion, who many of us idolised at that time. The Slipper Works specialised in making character slippers, and as Lenny the Lion was one of the chief wanted things in a child's Christmas stocking, the slippers were a good sideline. So he'd come to look at the production and we'd come to look at him, and the photographs bring back such happy memories of that lunchtime.
In the summer, the farm and the fields would become the centre of activity.
My parents were John and Kathleen Pickles, and there was just me. I was an only child. They moved so I could get to school and went to Constable Lee Primary School. Life on the farm was seems many years ago now, but thinking about it, I didn't really appreciate what a lucky person I was. It was very lively. There was always something going on, something different. I could always have friends to come and play, and they always wanted to come and play, really, because they had so much space to do things. In the winter, we used to go sledging down the hillside. In the summer, of course, there was always haymaking. Haymaking was a big event. It used to take us such a long time. I can always remember there was just one year when we finished haymaking on the 30th of June, and that really was a record. And I remember everybody rushing round to try to get all the hay in, because we could see all the dark clouds and the thunderstorm coming, but we just made it. It used to be all done by hand. There are lots of people used to come from all around the area, from Woodcroft Street and Thorn Street and East Street, and people used to come to help because there were no tractors originally, because we had horses.
In the 1950s, things we take for granted today were still illegal.
My dad, Brian, used to be a bookies runner when it was illegal.
I always thought you were a bit sneaky.
Yeah, that's right. But do you know what? Honestly, at weekend, all the time, it was like, knock, knock, come in, betting slips, all non-diplomes, of course, as well, so they didn't know his bets to work. Anyway, on one occasion, he got the word that the police were going to come and nab him one Saturday. Before they came, he came out, through his end pen, up through onto top of Picklesworth Farm, past Little Blackpool, into Crawshay Booth, to York Street, where the bookie was every year is a bloke called George Washington. So he handed in the betting slips and the clocks and everything. Yeah. So he didn't have it, you know. And of course got away with it on that occasion. And the biggest day of the year for him used to be Grand National Day, because everybody in the street would have a shilling on, you see. And anyway, one particular day there's a knock on the door, and he opens the door and there's a police sergeant stood there, and he thought, Christ, I'm going to be in trouble here now, you know. And he said, hey Jim, can you do us 2 bob each way on such and such a thing? So it just shows, you know, they never bothered in them days even, you see, you know.
Of course, for sledging you obviously need snow, and I don't know why, but I have it in my mind that it snowed every winter. I can't remember not sledging every winter for year after year after year.
That's right. They were, yeah. The winters were much more severe, and well, you know, we've had 2 bad ones recently, but they were, every winter you could guarantee at some time there'd be snow.
Snow enough to sledge down.
And we'd be out, as soon as we came home from school, you'd have your tea and you'd be out sledging or whatever, in this back street and in the front street. I don't know, it used to alternate from one to the other. I can't remember.
It was mainly back street. I don't remember sledging much down the front street, to be honest.
Oh,
but I'll tell you where we used to go sledging, and I don't know if you can remember this. We used to go in one of Pickles' fields, and we used to call it the Death Ride.
That's right. It was a very, very steep run.
Yeah, and halfway down it went over like a 4-foot drop in the hillside, didn't it?
Yeah.
So you were lucky if you survived that, and if you did survive it, you got your brains knocked out at wall at bottom.
That's right. That's right. Oh, it was called. I remember it. It was the Death Run. It was absolutely fierce. Was that?
What condition had to be perfect for that one?
And I say we'd be out just after tea. It was always dark, and. You know, I didn't come in while my mother, you know, she came and shouted at me.
That's right.
You know,
or you're too cold to
continue.
Or
you're too cold or wet through, you know. Yeah. When the snow started to melt, you always got wet through, didn't you? Yeah. And of course, you used to go down here like hell, and it right across from into some railings at the bottom, which are not there now, of course.
Well, it's even more dangerous now, because you went through them railings, you end up in the
and they were cast iron, weren't they? With spikes on the top.
There were spikes on the top, yeah.
Yeah, and I think only you said that Peter Fisher.
Peter Fisher got his head stuck.
He went through sledging, got his head stuck through. Yeah, I don't think anybody got seriously hurt, but I remember going bump into them once or twice.
And there were I say, there were no cars out to cause a problem there.
No. And living in the middle of this community was a centre forward for Manchester City.
What's your memories of Billy McAdam? I know he lived in this house here behind us, and I remember him as a kid, him playing for Man City. But I know you knew him better than I did.
Well, he used to play with his son Billy, a bit younger than me, but Billy was Billy McAdam Senior, played for City like he was a hero around here because he was a professional footballer, although he played for City, not Burnley.
Well, that's right. I can remember that. I remember him playing for City, and I knew at the time that he was centre forward, wasn't he, for Man City? And I seem to remember, you know, even though he was the centre forward for City, because we were all Burnley fans around here, it didn't seem to...
He had a bit of a leaning for City then.
It didn't seem to matter the same somehow. I don't know. We just didn't, you know, we probably didn't give him the credit he deserved, really. I mean, can you imagine centre forward for Man City today? Living here. I mean, would Carlos Tevez live here?
I don't think so.
Would never happen, would it? You know, never. Never in a million years would this happen anymore.
I remember when my daddy said, come on, we're going up playing football up Sunnyside, and I didn't know at the time, but Dennis Law had been transferred from Huddersfield to Manchester City, and he was stopping at Billy's house here, just as a boarder for, I don't know, a few days, a few weeks. So I just played football with me, well, my dad was there, Billy McAdams, Irish international, played for Manchester City. Dennis Law, who my dad said, he's a spotter with glasses, he'll never make a footballer. My dad knew a bit about football, but obviously he got that one wrong.
I think he did.
So I went up there, and there's another chap who played professional football. I think he had retired from football, but I think he was called Buchanan. So there was those three on, and me playing, and I was about 5 years old. And so that's my claim to fame, playing with 2 internationals and 3 professionals on Sunnyside Baptist football field.
Wow.
But
that's fantastic.
I don't remember anything of it that young lad, but my dad said always remember that.
Church walking days featured firmly in the calendar.
So one of the great institutions that were when we were little that doesn't happen anymore were the walking days. And they used to be in summer, and every church in the area used to set off from the respective church. I think Baptists, Methodists all joined in together.
As we went down to Rossendale, they joined in, didn't they?
And we had a good band with us, bands, very, very big occasion. And all the mothers used to select a type of fabric, and we all had to have dresses made of the same fabric.
From AD way.
Girls had dresses. Yeah. Boys had a brand new outfit once a year for walking day that lasted the rest of the 12 months. And at the end of the walking day, the new sandals always produced blisters under the ankles.
Yeah, they did, because it was a long way down.
So you had to put plasters on under those ankles before you set off.
And Jeff, do you remember my dad used to part your hair?
With tutty.
And it used to be a straight parting.
That's it. And the photograph outside the house in all the news. Once a year stuff.
Yeah, pristine. And sometimes if you didn't have new sandals, they used to whiten your plimsolls, your pumps. They used to whiten them.
Well, they used to do that all year long.
Do you not remember the smell of that?
You couldn't get rid of the smell of the pumps.
No, you couldn't. And we had posies, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And we used to walk down the road holding a
tape between us.
And we had banners, and then we would all go down to Queen Square.
And have a Billington. That's all
I
wanted.
The annual crowning of the Rose Queen was always a special event.
I remember your mum going all out for that dress. I mean, it was fantastic.
Well, she actually went to night school to sew that dress and train. Her and my Auntie Mary made it at night school.
Oh, right.
Because it was a train what she was more bothered about.
Yeah.
And then the dress, like Angela's dress and Sandra's dress, my Auntie Anne and my mum made together. But it was actually my Auntie Mary who helped with the train.
Yeah.
And my
mum said the work in that train was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it were beautiful. There were all beads in round it. She didn't want a stand-up collar, she just wanted the little ruffle around neck, so she pleated it. And then there were all pearls on the back. It were ruched up underneath with like an apricot orange colour.
Yeah.
And it were brocade, bridal brocade actually, and it was like a tulip design, and she'd scalloped all the way around the neck and the sleeves of my mum. And that's what she actually went to night school to make sure she got that right.
Oh, right.
She wasn't bothered about the actual fitting of the dress, because she could do that. It was just getting the scallops right and what have you, making sure it worked, because she's quite an expensive dress.
Those were the days when everyone seemed to know one another and children could play safely in the streets and fields. Indeed, a special time which will probably never be repeated.
I look back and think how fortunate I was and wish really I'd appreciated it more at the time.